Look at the photo.
Everybody has their own happy place, a little destination within their brains to make them feel at ease from an otherwise stressful reality. However, in this instance, what should be the safest area of the brain to be at is actually your worst nightmare come to life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the immediate sense I got after getting my first taste of this analog horror series, Liminal Land. All I know is that it might be about an amusement park, and that it plays off of liminal spaces. After doing some digging as to what exactly liminal spaces are, I found some things I actually wasn't expecting. I'm seeing liminal space being described as an aesthetic horror scene of some sorts, where the rooms are empty and vast and see no end in sight, seemingly going on and on into an abyss. This is more in line with the back rooms, being in that ugly lit office building that just turns into a horrific maze. A common theme found within most liminal spaces is that they are in areas of transition, say an abandoned station or an empty hotel hallway. This oddly brings us to the second way this appears to be used. There are articles I'm finding that are defining liminal spaces as mental states to be in, be it you are moving or going through a breakup. Those are transitional life moments, so to speak, which can be defined as being in a liminal space. There are plenty of more examples of liminal spaces that can be explored, but today I want to see how it plays out in this intriguing horror series. This was recommended to me by all of you guys, and even Sebastian right here told me I should check it out too. So without further ado, I say we turn the lights off and the volume all the way up. For safety, of course. But before I let you get too far, however, I just wanted to say if you like what you're watching and want to see more, me and Isaiah just finished our VHS reaction series, which was super fun to do, and our next series we react to should be coming soon. I'll also have the social links in the description below, where you should also hit the subscribe and bell notification to be a part of every new upload. Alright, now you can pass through. LVVT Channel 5 Sign-Off, 1988, Missing Persons, First Entry. We begin on our station opening up with the national anthem. We play on this for a while before we abruptly cut away to a missing persons image for Margaret Jacobson. We hold on to her photo for a while before cutting to the next missing person, Frank Strother. We go on to show 7 more missing persons photos. We have Angie, Sherry, and Mark, Herman Reed. Then we see Roger, Angela, and Lisa. That's a lot of missing people to try and find here. Our description gives us a bit more info as to the world we are in. Archived anthem and sign-off for LVVT Channel 5 in Lake Valley, New Mexico. Contrary to the small population size of Lake Valley, the high number of missing person cases is likely attributed to the numerous incidents that took place within nearby Liminal Land Park. Sounds like an amusement park to me. I'm going to be honest when I tell you that this next detail within this first entry truly had me shaken up. The immediate cutaway in this first entry from the national anthem to the missing persons photo is already unsettling and jarring enough, but this is referencing a real broadcast and a real missing person. I won't go into too much detail since there's already so many conspiracies about this incident, so I'll give you the cliff notes. In 1989, during the end of what looks like some old broadcasting, we get a couple PSAs, then the station is signing off with the national anthem. Then just like the entry, we hard cut away from the music and to this image of a missing person, Joanna Lopez. This image then was on the air for the rest of the night, all up until the morning broadcast would take over. When I tried to see more about this, I saw a lot of people pointing to the conclusion that this person just isn't real. Any searches done online to try and find any previous records of this person are met with nothing. I don't know why though, but creepy imagery taking over my television is one of the most nightmarish scenarios I could ever be in. Company training tape, visitor satisfaction. Entry 2. We return to classic analog horror style with archived footage of a Liminal Land company training tape. Something shown for new hires, it seems. According to the description, it's a recovered tape from the main office at Liminal Land Park, and we see that there are people trying to uncover other tapes, perhaps on investigation. After hearing how grateful the company is to have us, we are then instructed on how to spot dissatisfied visitors of the park. We are shown an example image of 2 kids on a ride, and we get our first glimpse of this horrific-looking amusement park. Is that a huge wall to show that it's indoors? Or are we in some misty swamp? I'm gonna guess indoors for right now. Turns out only the kid on the right was dissatisfied. I would have guessed both were, cause look at this guy. Now it's up to us to try and guess. Given our next image, I am going to guess it's this creepy kid in the middle. I don't like that shocked look on his face, I tell ya. This kid in the front looks like he just got jumped. We got the dissatisfied person correct, surprisingly enough. There's only one person in the next image, so I would guess that it's them, with their soulless, empty eyes. I figured it'd be them because who else? Now this image is just insane. For starters, it looks like Grandma's very satisfied with whatever is going on, and it also kinda looks like she's possessed. I really don't know who could be in this next picture. All of these kids look like little aliens. But before we get to make a guess on the next photo, we quickly cut out the static before lettering starts to spell out. The park is A, and then it cuts out. But the leading theory is it's saying the park is a lie. There's also people saying that it says the park is alive, but there seems to be more of a space between that A and the L. We are then shown an image of what looks like two people being taken away or being stored up with a bunch of equipment. After that image, however, it looks to be the end of this training tape, where we are told to suggest additional park activities to anyone who looks like they may be dissatisfied. So we got our confirmation of Liminal Land being some strange amusement park that looks to be indoors. And if I'm to take a guess, those missing people we saw in the first entry found themselves lost here. Whether or not those missing kids were dissatisfied, which God only knows what they actually do to those non-satisfied visitors. Investigation tape. The Liminal Land anomaly. This entry has us looking into a New Mexico State Police case file on the Liminal Land anomaly. We are made aware of an anomalous attraction that resides at Liminal Land Park. Who would have guessed? What's really bizarre, however, is how the ride in question is believed to be tied to numerous cases of facial deformity. Could this have to do with why all those images in the past entry had those messed up faces? What's more distressing to hear, before going further in, is that the LVVT declined to cover the case because the visual depictions are not suitable for the general audience. Our first victim is named Rick. According to this, Rick came with his wife and kids to Liminal Land Park and allegedly snuck away from them to go ride the Liminal Land anomaly by himself. Okay, so Liminal Land anomaly is the actual name of this ride. Apparently, this ride led to his death, considering this photograph is said to be the last time his family saw him alive. We are then shown the illustration of his facial structure after the ride. It looks like the ride resulted in a permanent giant smile on his face and some eye sizing issues, but overall, his face is completely deformed. How could the ride have done this? It's then said that his cause of death still remains under investigation. Our next victim is Lena Sorensen, a schoolteacher who brought her first grade class to the park in 1984. We learn that Lena took the class to the Paradise Playrooms in the park. That doesn't sound ominous at all. It is then reported that she only remained with the children for 7 minutes before leaving through the rear exit, where the children were then left alone for over 8 hours and never noticed that she had left them. They had found Lena's body later in a patch of dirt behind the Liminal Land anomaly. Did she ride it? If she did ride it, then it certainly seems safe to say that the ride grabs a hold of the victim's will and makes them want to ride the ride, or just fully commands them to which after the ride is over, they are left dead and horrifically deformed. We are then shown Lena's facial deformity, and just like Rick, she has that giant smile and those empty eyes. Before our last victim we learn that the Lake Valley Police have refused to elaborate on their findings from the crime scene. Our next victim is Maria, and her fate may have been the worst yet. Maria came to the park by herself, and it is reported after riding the wheel, she then began to make her way to the Liminal Land anomaly. Luckily for her safety, the ride was closed for repair that day. Unfortunately, that did not stop Maria from riding this ride. Workers had reported seeing Maria near the ride's controls, yet they had done nothing to stop her or question her on what she was doing. Next thing they know, the woman is in the rear cart and the ride is in motion. Unluckily for Maria, the reason the ride was closed for repair was due to an issue of getting the ride to stop. Yeah, the ride had a problem with just continuing the track over and over and over again. It is said that the ride then ran for 26 minutes non-stop. I only fear what Maria's face was left like. As expected, she looks just like the rest, except it seems it also made her go hairless too, which could be due to the multiple rides. Who knows? All I know is Rick kept his mustache. Maria's death was the first official known death on the Liminal Land anomaly, so it sounds true that this ride has a way of controlling people to go and ride it, maybe to take their soul or do something else terrifying. Its control is so powerful, however, that it got Maria to probably figure out how to control the ride to get it back on. I don't know about you, but I don't know how to start a roller coaster. Found footage. Welcome home. We begin on another company training tape that, according to the description, has been recovered and submitted by an anonymous source. We see our classic Liminal Land intro, yet we see this tape is for home associates within Liminal Land. HOME is revealed to be an acronym for Holistic and Opportune Mutual Experience. It kinda looks like this home project is something like living at Disneyland, and it looks like Liminal Land's main goal is to encompass a feeling of comfort and homeliness long associated with the American suburbia, to which we are then presented with photos of interior design that might spark a sense of nostalgia in some of the viewers. The images do begin to get a bit more unsettling as you look at them, and then the tape tells us that we absolutely must maintain the stability and image of home to ensure the guests stay as long as possible. That doesn't sound threatening at all. We then get our first look of a full map of Liminal Land. We see the home entrance hangs just a bit ahead of the park's entrance, so it does sound as if my initial theory of Liminal Land being an indoor park isn't correct, oddly enough. At least it doesn't seem like that anymore, considering that it's revealed the home area is all underground. It overlays to show us that it actually surrounds the entirety of the park. I have a feeling this underground area is a lot bigger than we thought, as right before we cut away, it looks as if the park map is actually quite tiny compared to the grand scale of this home project underneath. Kind of like the entry where we had to spot dissatisfied visitors, we are now being instructed to locate messes or mishaps within the home area, so that guests don't get uncomfortable and want to leave early, if they are ever allowed to leave at all. We are shown an image of a very unsettling bedroom and are asked to spot the inconvenience. I can't really spot anything unless it's this bedsheet hanging out not fully tucked in. I guess that could be a little frustrating. But it actually turns out that the doors and windows are the inconvenience, and now they are gone. This is giving me Skinamarink vibes, and God forbid I ever think about that movie again. After all that, we are then shown a found footage tape that serves as an example of improper containment measures and how it led to anomalous occurrences for home residents. The footage begins and is easily my favorite moment of this series so far. We slowly walk into what I can only imagine is this home area, and it just looks super impressive, which in turn means it was super unsettling, and I felt uncomfortable the whole time. We look around and see that they aren't really full houses, but more like half houses, where they are built into this wall. It honestly looks like a whole little neighborhood center with a liminal mart and a community board. We also see open spaces for houses that will be built in the near future. We see at quick glance this lit sign above that says the road to home 077 closed, before our guy filming hears music coming within one of the houses. It initially sounds like music is playing overhead, but the next message says not to follow any strange noises after a guy follows the music into the house. We are also warned to never enter a stranger's home. We watch as we walk through this really strange looking house. There isn't much interior furniture, just some couches and a music player sitting in the middle. We go through an open area in the back and walk through another door into an even emptier room. We see a sign that tells us to block this door, but we walk off without doing so. We are then instructed to never leave a passageway open. What do these passageways lead to? Are we keeping something sinister from coming out? We then find ourselves in a more of a rundown area with a closed door that illuminates an orange light from under the frame, labeled C block. Oh god, what is behind that door? All we can hear is odd screams from behind as we then run towards the exit sign. After running towards the exit direction, we see a warning telling us to not go in there. We then learn why, as our character has found themselves in an infinite room of halls, and this isn't like the back rooms where you don't realize it's endless just yet because of how maze-like it is. This is pretty downright infinite once you look down just one corridor. Every way to go has an exit sign above to make this journey out even more impossible. We see that our victim has had to have been down here for countless hours as it seems to have gone dark and the camera is close to dead. All hope is not yet lost as we seem to approach two sets of doors that look to be the way out. However, once he opens the door, it looks like our character falls backwards, yet when we see what was on the other side of the door, it looks to be just a wall. A fake door, if you will. Before the entry ends, we see text telling us that those who seek departure will lose themselves. We have a couple quick hidden messages within frames that I caught throughout the entry. Our first one flickers over near the middle and we see that the text reads, "Routine and securely remove any and all doors, windows, or thresholds that can potentially serve as an exit from the home containment area." What were they trying to contain down here? It sounded like a place for park guests. There's something truly more sinister at play here. The next thing we see is a flash frame of text telling us enough. Another interesting detail is when we are being told the type of messages we will be getting to instruct us. We see a line that says it will tell us which areas are prohibited from being accessed, even by Charon associates. On the wall next to the door with screams coming from behind it, we see the word Charon plastered on the wall. It appears that these Charon associates are a bit higher up than others, but even they have inaccessible areas. I imagine the Infinity Room, but I mean, who in their right mind would want to end up in there? We have one more entry to cover. Let's see if any answers lie within. Investigation tape. Mommy's friend. Final entry. We are back to another case file from Lake Valley State Police, which continues their investigation into strange occurrences happening in this town. A week before this file was made, detectives received a tip directing them to the residence housed by Sofia Munoz. Allegedly, the Sofia Munoz had been acting increasingly erratic since her daughter disappeared under unknown circumstances. I don't know if you recall, but in the very first entry, there is a person known as Angie Munoz. We are then presented a photo of Sofia before we continue on with what's happening. We learn that according to Sofia, her daughter was last seen in her care until during the dead of night, while Sofia is asleep, her daughter runs from home off into the night. We see a picture of what I assume to be Sofia's bed, but she has a little something blacked out there in the middle. Detectives don't have any reason to suspect Sofia, but they are still unsure as to what Angie's motives were for running away. However, during the most recent search, drawings from Angie had been discovered, and boy do they tell a frightening tale. The story is titled Mommy's Friend. In the story, we learn about how Angie's mom takes her everywhere, and how one day she was taken to Liminal Land. Angie says she was excited until her mother made her sad. She says her mom took her into the house, and inside this house, there were a bunch of more houses. The next page cuts off after Angie tried to describe what her mother looks like. It looks like someone else had altered these drawings to scribble out some revealing info. Angie describes that her mom was looking for a friend, and it looks like the mom had reassured Angie to follow her and that it's all okay. We see a drawing of just a door, and then the next one telling us that inside was a mommy's friend. Except I don't think that's what Angie wrote, as we see two big words scribbled out. Also, Angie had repeatedly misspelled friend until this very moment, and I don't think she had just learned the right way out of the blue. Who would have scribbled words out and tried to hide what Angie was drawing? My only current guess is Sofia, who now has totally had something to do with the disappearance of Angie. The final drawing is of mommy's friend, and I gotta be honest, this friend seems more like a demon than anything. The last image we are met with is another one of Sofia Munoz, and that she is wanted, with a phone number to call at the bottom. That may have been the final entry on YouTube, but this journey is far from over, it seems. Linked on the channel and at the bottom of every entry is a link to a Liminal Land website. After some digging, I believe this website actually came out before the YouTube series. We are met with a whole website that as I sit and watch this home screen, the more scared I'm going to get. So let's see what we can find in here. Under the Attractions tab, we can scroll through and look at every ride with a corresponding image telling me that I would never have gone here. What's fascinating is you can click on each image and it gives you a little fun fact about each ride. In the Accommodations tab, we get some more info on the home project. Apparently it was originally for the employees and their families that worked in the prior facility, but later on it transitioned towards park visitors for Liminal Land. It said that Charon sought to keep guests inside the park for as long as possible to maximize profits. When we look at this other map to see the size of this home project, it continues to show that in comparison to the park, this home project is massive. If it's infinite, however, then it's going to be quite bigger than that. We read further at the bottom that in most cases, due to the comfortable 50s-inspired decor, park visitors would fully transition and just live in these houses indefinitely, which I have a feeling was the end-all goal for this company. You can scroll through tons upon tons of photos of these houses they lived in, and I gotta tell you, this is the most nightmarish dreamcore imagery I have ever laid eyes on. There's the Gallery tab, which, if you want to give yourself stress-related illnesses, I say it's worth a scroll. Literally, some of these are just downright hellish. Things start to get incredibly deeper once we head into the Archives tab. According to this letter, it appears that someone up at Charon has noticed some unusual activity coming from law enforcement. Reports of street-clothed officers surveying the premises after park hours. Apparently, an officer was caught at level 34 of Subliminal Land, hiding in the men's restroom. Let's talk about Subliminal Land for just a second. According to this promotional pamphlet, Subliminal Land was a 36-floor underground swimming pool. The cool thing about this pool is that once in the water, you never have to get out. You can just continue going down these slides that take you to the next floor down. And what's even better is that after the 10th floor, the scale of these rooms grow exponentially in size. This is said to be by design so that you don't have to deal with any crowds. Oddly enough, I can't see anything that says how to leave once you go down to the floors that are so large you will stop encountering other people. There's even a warning for those with autophobia, which is the fear of being alone. So back to that officer who was hiding in level 34 in the men's restroom, just so that we now have the Subliminal Land context. He claimed he just got lost, but then refused to say anything after. I believe it's safe to say that this letter was written by someone within Lake Valley State Police, but I could be wrong. I just don't know who else is able to consistently update someone at Charon about the investigations going on. Further on in the letter, it mentions that there were complaints about a certain person or group calling about the laugh track. It looks like people who have a special interest in that ride specifically. At the end of the letter, it says, "We're here to help." This is the only thing that might make me think it isn't an officer who sent this, unless the entire Lake Valley Police Department is aligned with this park in some way. Now that I think about it, earlier in the series we did see mention that it took about 3 victims of the Liminal Land anomaly before the first recorded death. The next important thing found within archives would be a police report on a house fire in 1987. We see a photo of the remains of the Jacobson home. It was said that even though the response time was quick, nothing could be done to salvage the home. I have a feeling this has to do with Margaret Jacobson, our first missing person seen in the first entry. According to this police report, the fire was caused by an oven fire due to a forgotten cake left by the mother. The 2 children were locked in their room for bedtime and very unfortunately did not make it through the fire. A lot of weird stuff happened in this incident, I must say. It might just be me, but it's a little strange how the 2 adults, I'm guessing the parents, made it out to tell the emergency responders about the children in the bedroom, but couldn't just get them out while they were inside. It just seems a little strange to me. I may be correct to think as such, as the next mention of Mrs. Jacobson reveals it is certainly the same one we saw earlier. Another missing person poster, except this time we see that foul play is suspected. She went missing a little over 6 months after this house fire. Other things that start to make more sense are the Paradise Playrooms. This is where that school teacher had left her first grade class for 8 hours by themselves. A lot of the wording for this area's promotional material includes losing yourself and endless play awaiting children. It even says below that the attraction lived up to its name, with children joyfully spending hours lost in the maze of never-ending fun. As a matter of fact, the whole park has this theme of getting lost. At the bottom of the site, it says lose yourself in Liminal Land. There is another letter that can be found that seems to be from the maintenance team lead, Jason Franklin, to someone at Charon named David, about issues regarding the home project. Apparently, workers are continually walking off, and it all started after permanent stays became available. That the residents sit in their rooms living like shit, with their trash littered everywhere. The frightening part, however, gets near the end of the letter. We see that Jason had reported hearing strange sounds within C Block, akin to a child's scream. Unfortunately, the way he describes what follows is blacked out. We got a first-hand look at those screams coming from that C Block. What could actually be down there? There's tons upon tons of lore bits in these archives, and it truly makes for a whole new immersive experience going through it. The Serpentine ride had claimed that it appeared alive and snake-like. Also, the previously mentioned laugh track, which used specialized restraint compressions to evoke uncontrolled laughter during its 8 minutes. 8 minutes! We see an article that goes over some research done by Dr. Frank Schlittenberg about compression-induced laughter published in 1959, plenty of years before this park was in operation. Next to the gallery tab on this website is a tab called Intervention, and when you click on this tab, it just takes you to a blank screen requiring a password to get through. As of right now, according to the creator, the password is not accessible yet, as there is supposedly still more to come. However, that didn't stop me just yet. It appears that there was a password prior that worked, and once typed in, it would pull up this image. Does this guy look familiar to you? Yeah, it looks exactly like Mommy's friend. Oh sweet heavens. Here we are introduced to Moloch, I think.
Moloch.
Hell yeah. Here we are introduced to Moloch, who is a god most notably associated with child sacrifice. This starts to clear some things up when you think about children being left in this big paradise playroom for them to get lost in, and the adult just mindlessly wanders off to ride this anomaly that kills them. Another interesting thing to find is that Charon, the name of this corporation behind Liminal Land, is the name of another possibly familiar entity. In Greek mythology, Charon is most commonly described as the ferryman who takes the dead across the river into the underworld. This leads me to my current running theory that Liminal Land is a cover-up for a big sacrifice of some sorts to these entities. The people who were actually reported missing seem to be quite small in comparison to the people that seem to actually have gone missing. Just based on the design of this layout, there had to have been plenty more. The last thing I wanted to point out is that before this plot of land became what we know as the amusement park, it was a power plant facility known as Clean Energy. Underneath these facilities home their underground housing development for the workers, which later go repurposed into home. We also learn about the hub, which is the main energy sector of this whole area. However, due to the constant reactions happening inside, entering this room often meant death in under an hour. We then get the fact that this room got retrofitted into the final floor of Subliminal Land, which made it one of the most highly sought after locations in the entire park. Are people willingly going after it, or is it another anomaly where the person is coerced? I have a feeling there is still plenty more to uncover when it comes to Liminal Land and its mysteries. As of right now, I believe it to be a ruse for a big sacrificial offering to these entities. Liminal Land has probably been one of the most inventive and mind-bending pieces of analog horror I have had the pleasure of diving into. The outside material going to the website truly felt like I was uncovering more and more of a darker secret the more I looked. The fact that there is still a password needing to be solved tells us that there is still so much we don't know. And there's probably a ton of stuff I missed given the scale of this story. There was a file I had downloaded that pulled up a picture of a CD, but I couldn't figure anything else out about it, but it sounded like a game that could be played. The most frightening part of this whole series has to be the imagery it provides. It specializes at weaponizing our nostalgia against us and turns it into something unsettling. It gives me the feeling of being in a place I am supposed to feel safe in, except there is something else in the area with me with evil intentions. Strong nostalgia jabs or deja vu are quite an interesting physical reaction to have that I know I get and some other people do too, and it's honestly one of the most strangest feelings. If it's nostalgia, I normally feel quite well, but with this, it takes it and turns it into a whole new nightmare. I will certainly be keeping Liminal Land on my radar and would like to do a follow-up if more stuff comes out about it. But I thank you all if you have made it this far, and if you haven't already, I recommend checking out the Liminal Land site as well, since there was a ton of cool horror imagery to explore that is really effective. But if you'll all excuse me, I hear the Liminal Land anomaly is an incredibly fun ride.